Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest Esports Trade Association LinkedIn Live. We're here with the Education Committee, and today we're going to be talking about education and esports around the globe. And we've got representatives from 3 different continents here with us this evening. So to start with, what we'll do is we'll just go around and give a few quick introductions. So I'm your host this evening, Nick Turner, and I'm chair of the Education Committee here at the Trade Association, based in London. And we've got an amazing panel this evening, and we'll start with let's start with the youngest. Christian, would you like to introduce yourself and just kind of like explain what you're doing and where you're at in terms of education and esports?
Yeah, so I'm Christian Chunn. I'm currently a student at Columbia College, and I compete for their Valorant team in esports. I've been competing for the past 8 years, and just want to continue growing in the field. I'm also an intern at NECC Games and volunteer for the Girls Who Game Club in Columbia, Missouri.
Excellent, and we'll stay in America. Vanessa, would you like to just give us a quick intro?
Sure, Vanessa Kenon. I'm at the University of Texas at San Antonio, and I'm the Associate Vice President for Technology Compliance and Community Engagement. And part of that community engagement, part of technology, is I work with Roadrunner Gaming. That's our gaming group, and I work and serve and advise them on all things that's technology and has to do with compliance and stuff like that. So I keep it, in other words, I keep them legal at the university.
Excellent. It's always useful, that one. And then coming to a fellow European, Nesli, would you like to just say a few words?
Hi, everyone. European, that's a shady comment on me. We'll see. But hi, I'm Nesli. I'm from Turkey, Istanbul. I teach esports in various institutions and universities all around the world, but I am primarily the academic director of Bahçeşehir University in Istanbul, Turkey. I am the chairperson of the education board of Turkish Esports Federation and various other esports gaming institutions, NGOs, but I run my own company called Ludos, I do a lot of advisory work on gaming, esports, board game design, and all sorts of fun things.
Excellent. And then last but certainly not least, Peeyush, in India, what time is it there right now?
It's about 10:30 in the night.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us and staying up for this. So just tell us about what you're up to there in India.
Sure. So first of all, I think this is standard gamer time, so no need to, I think, fuss about it. But yeah, coming back, I think, what I've been up to is essentially building a curriculum around esports, which focuses on skilling while gaming. And it's not just limited to the skilling of the athletes or skilling as athletes, but also around skilling as let's say broadcast or production or casting, and the various different aspects of esports that can actually overlap with other career opportunities and how we can enable them.
Excellent. So we've got a really good panel this evening. So let's go straight on, and we'll start with you, Vanessa, because I know you've got to jump out in about half an hour. So to start with, how long have you been involved in kind of esports and education?
Oh, for quite a bit of time. I'm going to say close to 10 or 11 years. It's the funniest thing because every time something would come up and they'd say, hey, guess what? We need somebody to help our esports teams. For some reason, my name was called. And so this last time around was a big one. Our team lost their advisor because, technically you have to have an advisor, faculty, or staff on campus. And that person was leaving. At the same time, I was getting questions around us collaborating with Six Flags on an esports arena. So that's how I really got involved from the compliance side, because there were some things that there were lots of questions on. So this time around, I got involved and I was shocked at the number of students we had. Like in Discord, we had 400 or 500 people in there who were all communicating and talking about Roadrunner Gaming and what was going on. We had the president of Six Flags saying, hey, we're starting this huge gaming arena and Six Flags is directly across the street from us. And we'd like to have your students to come over and help us, number one, get it started. Number two, run it once it opens up. And then this to be the home of Roadrunner Gaming. So that was a big deal, a multi-million-dollar arena along with Coca-Cola. And so I helped them to get through all the paperwork, all the legal stuff that they needed to go through to be able to do that. And so we still kind of have that relationship with them where our students go over. We have students who work there. We have events there. They have been amazing with us as far as the community. And that's a big part of my job is community engagement. So we have high schools that go in and look at the facility, see how they can work, how they can partner. We also have people in the community who come out. We've had major events there as well at the facility. And if you're ever in San Antonio, Texas, you definitely want to go to Six Flags and check out that esports arena. I also help them with the things on campus that they're doing, looking at their financials, making sure that when they need to transfer money or they have things coming in from sponsors, because that's a big deal. I think groups and teams and organizations don't realize a lot of times there's people out there who want to sponsor you and help you to get to tournaments, to help you with your jerseys. We've had wonderful people like Dell, Weaver Technologies to come in and support our organizations. Rackspace has supported us as well. And the only way we get those kind of things is you have to ask. And sometimes the students don't know how to ask, or they don't know how to go through the process once they ask. If you have a company to come in and let's say they're giving you $10,000 or $15,000 for something, whether it's in-kind donations, purchasing your uniforms, paying for you to go to tournaments or whatever, you have to correctly go through the university, report that, and allow those companies to get some kind of letter or write-off for that. So those are some of the things I help our esports group with. The other thing is helping them to build a community. There's so much going on, especially at a large university. We're right at about 40,000 students and getting ready to merge with our health sciences university in San Antonio, which is going to bring us over 40-something thousand students. There's a lot going on. There's courses going on. There's things that in the community that the city of San Antonio sponsors for us as well. And how do you bring all of that together? So we're working on an internal esports council right now. This would include people who are teaching the courses, that way we know what's going on, folks that are running our new degree program we have in game design, having staff members in technology, because if you don't get your technology department involved, you're not running a good esports program. And that's kind of where I come in. Looking to the future, what are we going to do in the future as far as doing, are we building an arena on campus? Are we going to continue to utilize the arena that's across the street? How does that work for us? So all of the people who are involved with that, but most importantly, the students who run Roadrunner Gaming, which is a very vital and exciting organization that is out there competing nationwide. The Esports Trade Association has been fantastic to actually help us to see, hey, these are people that maybe you guys should be reaching out to for partnerships, to come in and help you, to come in and support you. That's our next step, is to bring the external council in. So we'll have an internal of all the people on campus who are working in esports, doing some sort of thing that touches esports, including students, faculty, and staff. Then our next step is to go outside for that external council, to bring all the people who are either already helping us with the things that we're doing as sponsors, and bringing in some other folks. And I should also mention XP League. XP League has been fantastic as well as supporting us. So folks like Dell, XP League, Rackspace, Weaver Technologies, they have been government technologies. They have been just outstanding in supporting our program. So if there's folks out there listening and you're thinking about doing that, that's a big part of community engagement, is bringing those community partners in and getting them to help you to support the places where you probably don't have funds.
And just to pick up on a couple of things you said there, you mentioned kind of like the new degree program, and
Yes.
kind of like my understanding of education and esports in America is the competitive scene has been there for, you know, quite a while and has established itself really well. The formal elements of esports qualifications, if you like, is a much newer thing, which is kind of almost in reverse to what's happening here in the UK. So, you know, kind of just, can you just kind of run over the historical side of the links between education and esports in the States and how that's developed, and then how it's developing moving forward?
Would love to. I see it as a lot of it. I think people thought, and some of it is in some of the big conferences, that it would fall under athletics. And we have some big conferences that do have athletic sports groups and stuff like that. I haven't heard a whole lot about how well that's going, because we have everything going on right now. If you know what's going on in the US with NCAA, with the NIL, the portals, So, athletes, it used to be you recruit somebody in, they're there with you for 4 years. Now we have the portal. So you have teams that are continuing to go every year. So in NCAA sports right now, that's a big deal, as well as NIL. So athletes used to not be able to get money. Now they're getting money. We have some athletes, we have basketball players in college that make more than some of our NBA players. That's how much that has really expanded out. So I really see that a lot of that right now, the NCAA that's a big focus for them for a while. And we were in a university group yesterday having that discussion. And I think everybody is under that belief. So what we see and where we're seeing more of the growth is on the academic side, because there's usually at a university more money on the academic side anyway. So what's happening now around programming, game design, more and more universities, especially in the academic technology sides, are starting to look at, hey, how can we build game design into our programs? And how can we also include and incorporate those clubs, gaming clubs that are already on campus? They're either competing, either individually, they're competing as a group, or they're competing as inside of a league somewhere. I had a chance to see yesterday, and I thought this was amazing with Danielle Rourke, who many people who are watching may know. She's done a lot with esports with Dell, CDW. She is now in Colorado at one of the universities there working. And we had a group to present yesterday on the community college esports. They have a league, and they have over 300 teams in that. And this is the community colleges. And it was amazing to see how they had it mapped out across the United States. So you have many, many different things going on. And so in the four-year universities, there are some groups that actually have, just like a NCAA, a Big 10 group or a Big 12 group, they'll have groups that are set up like that. And we have others who have not. I see that happening in years to come. A big part of it is the financial stuff. And we had that discussion on yesterday as well. As we see it as really maybe going to grow, if once that they can really show this makes money, this produces money, it makes money. And that's when the sponsors, where you have to go out there and get those folks who are going to sponsor the things that you're doing. And I know with Six Flags across the way, for us, that has been amazing in having them a part of what we are doing, as well as Coca-Cola, who sponsors that arena that's over there. So those things, I think, and when I'm talking to folks, I'm like, hey, go out and talk to the people who are on your campuses, especially in higher ed, that are there doing technology. Those are the people that would love to put their names on some of the things that you're doing.
Excellent. That's really interesting. And you kind of like mentioned that academic development, and this is where I'm going to cross over to Nesli. That is your thing, right? The academic side of esports and gamings, and kind of like you've been kind of like trailblazing in Turkey in terms of kind of like development of that, and then also kind of like the inclusion elements. So from your perspective, and I know you kind of like travel the world to go to events and speak and those sorts of things. So how does what Vanessa just said compare to what you've experienced, and just kind of like talk us through what's happening in education and esports in Turkey?
Yeah. So Turkey is actually, I think this is the height of esports education in Turkey. Overall, it's been like since 2016, esports is like a prominent thing in Turkey. We have various like championships won all across the world for many different titles. So esports still new, but it's been developing. We have a huge scene, but yeah, like academic wise or university wise, we don't have any degree programs yet, which I'm not sure if we need it. That's a big discussion. Maybe we'll have some, I don't know, different views even here amongst us, but we don't have that. But my program at BAU, so it started 7 years ago. So it's fairly like an old program. I think the most established one in this region across me. And we were blessed, I think, because we started off with a partnership with Riot Games. We opened the first accredited university course in Turkey for esports, which has been a hassle because we had to go to the Higher Council of Education and prove that esports is something to be taught in an academic environment, which was a troublesome thing because we didn't have any like legal regulations, anything at the time. So we had to like, this is a thing, and we had to gather like all the, like there was not many articles or books published yet, so it's been a struggle. But we were very lucky because we got really good corporate sponsorships. We got ACES, Republic of Gamers, to provide us with an incredibly good setup for our esports. I'm not going to say room because it's a center at this point, and it's a huge thing to have at a university 7 years ago from now. And then we were allocated a special division within the university that is not linked to the game development department, which is again a feat in its own because we have our own budget and whatnot. But I know we are privileged because this is not the reality of the region or Turkey at all. But we have a really good player base in Turkey. We are a young nation, so we have many people playing the games knowingly. They're not just playing idle games. They're good at playing them, especially FPS and mobile games like PUBG and CSGO. Like we are very good at them. So we had that client base, let's say, or the player base. And once we started offering them with opportunities like scholarships at our university, or like we are open for everyone to come. You don't have to obtain a scholarship, so you can come and meet with us, work with us. We have a esports let's say student group that's about 1,000 something, more than 1,000 students involved. So we do a lot of community events as well. So they found a link with the academic environment, so that's been good. But I think we have a lot of way to go, but we are having good developments. Like we have the federation. Our federation is one of the few like established governmental federation, esports federations. And this year is the first year that they opened an education board of education. So that's a good progress as well. So because that means that they felt the need to have that specific board to decide on the education side of esports, because the competitive side, we're good. We have incredible teams, we have incredible accomplishments, but we don't really see the need, I think, not me, but generally, to create that bridge between learning, teaching, and esports, because everyone thought that either the entertainment aspects of esports, which is like tournaments, very glamorous, live feeds, that's great, or the playing side of things from a player perspective. But what about the background? What about the skills that we can teach through esports? What about teaching how to be an athlete from a sports perspective? Or like there's so many things that you can do. When you say esports education, I always divide it into either esports, like teaching esports, or teaching through esports. And these are such big titles that can fill a whole academic discourse, I think. So that's what we're fighting for, I think, but we're doing good. I see a lot of interest. It's not going to be a prominent academic discourse yet, but this year we decided to organize an international conference. I know there are various universities trying to establish something to do with academics. I published 2 books and 5 articles on esports, which is a feat, not for me, but somebody deemed this to be publishable. I think that's really good, because it's been the biggest struggle, because when you go to prove your case, you need backup, you need data. Data is the key for everything in nowadays. And if some people, specifically not esports academics, I'm saying like lawyers, I don't know, health professionals, when they come into this discourse, it elevates our hands so much, because I need that data, and I'm not a health professional, I'm not a law professional, so I need that data to amplify our voice and fight for the need for the esports education as a separate case. So I think we're doing good. We're doing really good.
And what's the cultural perception in Turkey of kind of esports, and is that potentially been one of your biggest challenges?
Well, 7-10 years ago, yes. Nowadays, because we had so many like European and world champions, and they started feeding their families, like they started, just like Vanessa said, they started getting a lot of money I'm not going to compare NBA salaries, but in our country, it's like they're doing pretty good and they're very young. And now that almost every team has this support system in place for pushing their athletes to study still in some way or another, or they have psychologists, or they have I do a lot of parents and teachers conferences to teach how esports can be utilized for good, because it's a concept that's not going to go away, but they're afraid of it. But I have this analogy, like if anyone and everyone can, if you eat 7 boxes of chocolate, you're going to get sick. That doesn't mean chocolate is a bad thing. Just as in gaming and esports, if you play 7 hours with no objective, that's bad for you. Objectively, for everyone, any single one of us, that's bad for you. Athletes don't play in that way. So we try to teach, we try to, make our voices heard, saying that this is an actual, like a profession, a sport in some way. Again, that's a discourse for another time, but they really train like athletes, and there needs to be an objective. It's not idle gaming. So I always try to separate gaming and esports in that way, because if we merge them, I know there are some benefits to to make it more popular, let's say, but we need to separate them, because the outcome and the way of learning and playing is so different than just playing. And like I play games all the time, but I'm not an esports athlete or an esports player or even an amateur esports person, because that's so different than how I learned to play, because that's not my normal age-wise. But I think it's going better, especially in big cities. That goes for MENA region as well. If once we have these possibilities of scholarships, and once the parents and teachers see the benefits in using esports for something good, then they stop being worried that much. That also works with the government and health institutions warnings, not being in it was not in a bright light. It was all like, your kid's gonna get obese and they're gonna eat a lot of junk food and they're gonna be like they're gonna kill people, which is why would they kill people? And so we are working, a lot of academics and teachers, were working together. I think it's going good, not the best, but this is what we're here for, what we're doing. The thing that we're doing right now, this is just to have some data recorded for the future, for the people to see and learn and not be afraid of esports, I think.
Excellent. And you raised some really good points there, and we'll come back to some of those for discussion later. If we can, I think now let's head over to Peeyush, and can you talk us? I know you're heavily involved in kind of like developing new kind of initiatives in terms of education and esports. What's the situation in India in terms of those things, like in terms of academics or competitive? How's things happening, and how have things happened previously?
Okay. So I think the path of esports in India has been a sort of sine wave, so to speak. With a fair share of ups and downs. We've had good moments and bad moments, and then app bans and whatnot affecting the overall ecosystem in a very large way. But I think over the last couple of years that has improved, and the ecosystem is starting to shape up. And as that is shaping up, the education phenomena, or the thought process of people considering esports as a means of education or as a career path is starting to, I think, take form. I would not say it is, every parent in India is very open to the idea of their child becoming an esports athlete. Absolutely not. I mean, I wish there was some dreamland in which that existed, but essentially, parents have now started accepting that as an idea, as a possible opportunity. And so, what has happened is, last year our Prime Minister met a couple of gamers and content creators, Mr. Narendra Modi, and that obviously led to some news about it, and it reaching more, I think, corners of the country. And therefore, with that penetration, there has been momentum. People have started developing courses, offering various courses. And I think, again, the reason why I say we're still sort of developing our path or forging our path is because I see courses with esports combined with game development. I see courses with esports, esports combined with sports, or in esports and sports management course, which has like one topic of esports and the rest is all about management in sports. So essentially, I think it's starting to take shape. It'll take its own sweet time. Now, in my case, what happened was, so I've been a gamer, for the most part of my life, and essentially, I have learned a lot myself through games, which is what got me into the idea of sort of education through esports. And you won't believe, even simple things like vocabulary I picked up from Dota, terms like alacrity. So essentially, I aspire to bring all of that together. And I was trying to figure out how to do it, but I stumbled upon an opportunity where a group of specially able children were put to me, or a school for specially able children asked me to do a summer camp for them, or conduct a 3-week summer camp for them. And I think that was a life-changing experience for me because I was able to impart skills which the teachers who'd been teaching them for years failed to do. And that was just, I think, mesmerizing for me. And that really got me thinking, I mean, imagine the impact that this can have at a global scale. And that is where it really got me going. And I think that is what really keeps me awake, and going at it, despite all the sine waves and ups and downs.
Okay, excellent. Now, I'm aware Vanessa needs to disappear fairly soon, but we've had a comment from Kyle Oliver. And before you go, Vanessa, I'd just like your thoughts on this, because I think it's very much linked to what you do. The problem with esports seems to be the high cost of the facility compared to the return. I believe combining other forms of STEM learning, providing high-tech professional training and meeting space is a way to bridge some of these issues in communities that can't support a centre on esports alone.
Totally agree with that. So here's a good example. We looked at what we're doing with Six Flags, which was a gift to be able to do that. There's no cost to us at doing that, going over to use that facility. The only thing is, it is behind a paid wall, so we have to arrange certain times. It's not like you can just hop in that facility at any time. That's a massive amusement park that's well used, but they've been wonderful to us. But you're exactly correct. We started to look at space to put a lounge at our campus. We had this room where it's sort of like a very small lounge where people come in. They're supposed to come in and bring their laptops and game. We walk in, and most of the time the students find it as a nice place because it has nice chairs to sleep. So we go, it's some great chairs. And so we go in there and we look at pricing, what it would cost to turn that into a sort of like an esports gaming room for the students, where we put maybe 10 to 12 computers. It was like $250,000. And so in working, we had Dell to come in, we had some other people to come in, and we were like, no, it's not worth it to do that. So this is why we're putting together what I talked about, having a committee internally, but also having those external stakeholders from the community. So what we're going to do as we start to get those folks together is work together, and we're looking at a 3 to 5 year plan on where, and think about how much esports is going to change between now and then. A plan as to how we can put together, maybe in 3 years, a space somewhere on campus where we can do that and not have to spend that exorbitant amount of money to be able to do that. This is where I always say it takes a village. You're not, unless you have somebody that has a big pot of money, like I think it was either the University of North Carolina, the North Carolina system, you can go out and look that up. Their state board gave them, I think it's like $500 million to set up esports. That is amazing. If you can think $500 million to be able to set those programs up. So you can go out and look at that and see what they did. Unless you have a state organization or a national organization that drop that amount of money in, and even for that, they have a lot to do with that amount of money. And that facility, very similar to what was discussed earlier, will be an academic facility that you can use for esports. So that's the way of doing it. It's very, very hard to get money for gaming. Some of the ways that you can get it, and if you're going to get it, it's still not going to be to get the equipment, to get the facility and get that facility set up. That money's going to come in to support the equipment and programming. So you still have to find the space. And so that's a big part of it, is finding a space somewhere and getting partners who maybe are willing to put their name on that space and be able to make that happen. So that's a
Excellent.
great question. That's the biggest part of it. And you've got to have partners. It's not something you can go out there
Yeah.
do on your own. Find somebody who has a lot of money, who likes to do esports and gaming. And a lot of times for the universities, you'll find some of these people, which we have in our Discord, because in our Discord, we have people who are alumni who have taken the next step. We did have one young man who's doing, now this is really different. He is building across Texas esports high schools. Now that's really, really different what he's doing. He just happens to be one of our alumni, and he went to work in gaming and the whole works, and he's got a lot of money. So he can afford to do that in some kind of way. He's getting grants for that. So the other potential too out there for getting money and getting grants is definitely around special needs, special education, and accessibility. I've heard people pulling in funds for that way too. But it's got to be something on the academic side if you're looking at trying to get money, because the facilities are very expensive. And then you're looking at what? Maybe a 3-year lifespan on that equipment. So if you're buying equipment, make sure you're buying something where you're getting extra things on it where you can upgrade that equipment in a certain amount of time. So hopefully that answers that question. It was a great question.
Brilliant. Thank you, Vanessa. Now, thanks for being so patient, Christian. We're going to come to you now. So, one of the reasons why I invited you on this, to the LinkedIn Live today was to give us the other side, to give us the perspective for somebody who has grown up kind of like engaged in gaming, then esports, and then through kind of like the education system, if you like. So, from your perspective, what have you seen over the years, and how has it changed, and kind of, what do you think about it? Or, are there things that you think as educators we're maybe missing?
I mean, well, like 4 years ago, college esports wasn't even like a thought. Like, when I was first growing up into it, it's just like, oh, I'm just playing esports for fun right now. I'm gonna make, maybe a couple dollars along the way, and then go off to school. But then, junior year hit, and then I'm starting to get like, I talk to people. They're like, oh yeah, we're competing in collegiate. We're getting scholarship money, and then that started to become like, okay, well, this is the goal now. And it's definitely changed from like people grinding for to enter like the lower professional levels into entering the now collegiate scene, because there's a lot of money, a lot of play time to be found in it. Um, so I think that's really good. Granted, a lot of the tier two scenes have hurt, but now like in Valorant, there's like 3 or 4 collegiate teams in the circuit to path to pro, so they could technically, if they win out, they will be in the highest levels of like the game, which is really great. I mean, that's like the dream for everybody. But like I think um it needs to be like, the problem with gaming is like everybody said, like people sit there, they're like, okay, I have to play 12 hours to get good at this game. Like 12 hours a day, grinds, can't stop. That's just not the case. It's like in traditional sports, like maybe they practice 2 or 3 hours a day, but it's like you need that rest time. And because it's a video game, you can just like go, go, go. But there needs to be intent. There needs to be like objectives behind it. You can't just all cylinders go, or else you just burn out, play bad. It's not good. So I think there needs to be more focused on like how, like everybody said, you can apply skills outside the game. Like me personally, from my experience, like there's a lot of communication issues within esports, like between teammates, like at the highest levels, people don't know how to communicate with each other. It's all ego based. It's like, I think I'm better than you. I'm going to talk down to you. And I think it's very important that in order to have a good and thriving team, you need that good team body. And if you have that, you're not going to win anything, or you're going to win games, but you're not going to have players that want to play for you. So it's just like communication, how to problem solve with each other, I think is really important, because it's all esports is problem solving. Like 95% of the time, it's this happened. How do I fix it within 30 seconds? You know what I mean? So I think if they can focus more on like in education wise, like how to work as a team, and then give them like quick problems that they need to solve as a team, and not just like, okay, one guy takes the reins and we're going to listen to him no matter what. I think that would be very beneficial, as well as bringing it up through high school. I think is very important. I started my a program at my high school, Monmouth Regional, like 3 or 4 years ago. We had a club, we competed. It was rough. We didn't have any funding. It was just like, okay, here's 5 of my friends. Let's play together. Let's try to win. And we made like semifinals every year, so it was a good time. But it's just like what they learned along the way, like what we learned with each other along the way was like how to work with each other, what we need to do to like make sure we don't get each other mad or upset at each other, like how we can what we can take away from each game. It's like you can apply all of this to real world activity. Like you mess up in a job, it's like how can I apply it? Like what did I do wrong? How can I fix it? And it's like it's just the same thing. It's just in a video game. And I think if esports was to adapt into a more education system, it would actually like heavily benefit many people because people learn differently. And I mean, video games can pretty much get any kid's attention if you really tried. So it just includes everybody, and then they'll learn these skills that maybe they had trouble elsewhere. And I think it would just be amazing to have it like as a degree or something like that.
Okay, so that brings us.
I'm just going to say something because Chris mentioned something beautiful, communication. And since this is in like a international esports panel, I wanted to add there's a linguistic barrier because we export a lot of Korean players, which I assume a lot of other countries and teams do as well. And we export. We do a lot of like player exchanges, and there's a language barrier. I know English is a common language, but still, when they get upset, you definitely turn to your mother tongue. So if they actually learn, if we teach kids, the players, athletes, how to communicate non-verbally somehow, as you said, as a skill, communication skill, how to lead a team with regulating your emotions, I think that's gonna elevate the esports scene so much, and that's very important internationally too. For every country, that's the way to establish a sustainable esports ecosystem, the communication part of it. And it should not be language driven, it should not be national, it should be above everything else. It should be about esports, and we should the common language should be the language of the game, the gaming language, I think, that which heavily relies on communication, in-game communication and teamwork, and what I don't like to call, but what it is called as 21st century skills. I think that's the main thing that we should strive for in esports education, because they already know how to play the game. Really, they don't need us how to learn to play the game. They are natives at this. The upcoming generation, the kids that are coming, I'm sure you work with them too, Chris, at the university. They're great at it. Even you might, but you're a tad bit old for that, I think. But the new ones, they're brilliant. But we have to teach them these skills so that they can be universal, I think. That's a very good point.
Totally agree. The professional skills. And there's a video out, and you can see it. I think NBC did a story on gamers. And one of the big things parents want to know, because that's a big thing, especially for the younger gamers and even those that are in college. What are you going to do with this as a career? And there's so many career paths, not just playing the games, that you can go into. And NBC News did a thing on air traffic controllers. Here in the United States, we have such a huge shortage of air traffic controllers. The people who are passing the test most, and there's the data out there for it, are the folks who have been gamers, because they think fast. If you try to think about it, they think very, very fast. And so they're on top of what's going on. So that has been a big, big thing. And so it's out there, NBC, and if you do a Google search, you can find that story on how the gamers are doing so well on those tests to be able to pass those tests to be air traffic controllers. And we have such a shortage, and not just here in the US, I'm sure as well worldwide.
Yeah. But we should be honest, I think, about how big the esports market is, because the possibility of you becoming a pro esports player and make a living out of it is so slim. So I think that's a great, again, correlation with what just Vanessa said. We should not just push kids, or maybe we should show them other possibilities of how you can integrate esports into your life some way or another. I'm not a pro player, but I make a living out of esports. So there are ways to do it. And we have to teach them those pathways, because I always say that gaming is a huge market. Everyone gives big statistics about it, but esports is a very small fraction of it. Let's be honest. But it's a more organic and more involved fraction of it, and there are so many layers of that, and no one is aware of it. They just think that gaming has many professions in it, but esports is just playing the game that has been published. No, esports is a very, very diverse, I think, field, and we have to strive to make people know, like there's another possibility. I wouldn't know if you find my high school self and say that you're gonna make a living out of this. I'll be like, nah, you're kidding. That's just not possible. But it is.
So-
Laughing, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, I go on, Peeyush.
Go on, Nick. Okay. So,
I was gonna
I think, all right, all yours.
No, honestly, I'm done. Go on. Off you go.
We are too nice to have this conversation, people. We are just too
Okay.
nice.
I'm done.
Okay.
Let it all out in a bit.
Okay, coming back. So, Nesli, I think, I can totally relate to what you're saying. And, that's been one of the reasons why when I started off, I said, very categorically that I differentiate between, I think game development, teaching game development and teaching esports, or teaching, esports combined with a bunch of other courses, but keeping it at a very minuscule level. I have no problem if esports is a component of another course, but it has to be given the due respect. I mean, esports is just so many layers, as you rightly said, right? Or the education of esports, and you can't finish it in one topic or one module or one chapter, for God's sake. So essentially, I think we have to really start talking about that more and more and deep dive into the various career paths. I have tried to talk about it as much as we can, and I'm sure all of us have, for that matter. Especially, and I'll give you a very unique example. So I'm not sure how many of you are familiar about how popular cricket is in India, but it is a phenomenon. So one of the casters from PUBG Mobile, he became a caster or a commentator for the Indian Premier League, so the IPL last year, and that is
cool.
huge. That is phenomenal. He got like a 100x paycheck upgrade, basically. And just to give you, food for thought. So essentially, these are the kind of career paths that open up if you take it seriously.
Yeah, and like, I have to thank you here, Christian, because you kind of brought all of this together, and like some of the points that Nesli mentioned that I was going to talk about, and then you've mentioned. And so I'm going to chip in a little bit here about what's happening in the UK, because, I actually think here in the UK, in terms of the formal academic side of esports, we're actually doing really quite well. And, and hats off to the British Esports Federation and Pearson and other universities that are kind of like spearheaded that and have introduced it. And the reason why I say this is that it links in to what's already been said. Esports is a small area, and we're not training, the formal qualifications that we have at college level for 16 to 18-year-olds. And we've got about 10,000 students studying esports. It's not about becoming an esports player and, a pro player. And I always say, when you do physical education or PE in school, they don't teach you to be a pro footballer. They teach you all of those other things. So they teach you on the courses that we run here in the UK, they talk about nutrition, health and fitness, that kind of like, Nesli mentioned objectives, and Christian, you kind of like said goals and grinding. And it's sort of like, when the college course was launched, I remember the first lesson we had, it was a big thing where the students were like, they wore badges of honor of grinding. Yeah, I did 24 hours last night. And slowly but surely, through education, we're saying, well, you're wasting your time. It's no good. You need to be doing this, and you need to be doing this. You need to be looking after yourself. You need to have sleep. You need to be eating properly. And what happened is that from the start of term, where students used to come in and they were, half asleep because they'd been up all night playing, suddenly all the esports students were on time and were like wide awake at 9 o'clock in the morning. Whereas you walked around the rest of the college, and they were still half asleep because they'd all been up playing games. And that was kind of like that first indication of, God, you know, like there's a lack of kind of education here, you know, in all of those things. You also mentioned, Nesli, that about it being a vehicle, like esports is a vehicle for other things. And I can't agree any more. I can agree, but I can't agree any more than what you've said, because the kind of what's the word I'm looking for? The attendance, the commitment, the passion enables you to deliver teaching across a wide range of transferable skills. Going to you, Peeyush, with the shoutcaster, exactly those things. Like, I'm not a gamer, and I'm certainly not even close to an esports athlete, but I enjoy esports. I like watching esports. I watch a lot of esports, but I've made a career out of esports, and I don't game. And that's what we're trying to show these learners, because when they do kind of like specific units, and sometimes that can be, they're talking about their careers. You know, we have units that are about, let's look at all the career paths. And it's probably 70-80% of them, when they say, what do you want to be? Because you've got to do a career development plan in esports. Most of them will say pro player. Second, coach, which is fine. But the more you educate kind of like young gamers, the more they realize, actually, I can get a really good career within esports. I'm never going to be a pro player because I'm not good enough, but I can still play. But I can be involved in all of those things. And it's no different to me when I was a youngster, kind of like through my teens. I was really good at sport. But for those of you who know me, I'm also only 5'1". And when I kind of reached 5'1" when I was 13 and looked at mum and dad and thought, I'm never going to be any taller than 5'1", I realized I was never going to be a pro tennis player. I was never going to be a pro cricketer. I was never going to be a pro footballer, because my size restricted me. So I became a journalist and worked in sport, because sport was my passion back then, you know, and I had a great career as a sports journalist before I got into education and esports. And those opportunities are there for everybody, and they're there for people within esports. The next kind of like thing I wanted to talk about was the degrees, you know, like, do we need degrees? And that we now have a lot of degrees, as you can imagine, because we've got 10,000 16 to 18-year-olds, studying esports. The universities have seen that as an opportunity to generate revenue, because these students are going to want somewhere to go. If they're already studying esports, then they may want to go on and study it at degree level. Those pathways are opening up all the time, and those courses are changing and varying. But there's still a big debate about, is a degree in esports kind of acceptable? And I would go with the same argument that it's not about the esports, it's about the skills and the opportunities that opens, and the passion that people have for it, so that they go on and study at a higher level and become more academic, you know, as they do that. The other thing, which actually came from the comment from Oliver about the return of investment on facilities, formal education opens up opportunities to do this in a different way, because here in the UK, 16 to 18-year-olds are funded by the government to study. So if I have no esports course, I'm not receiving any funding for those students. If I put on an esports course and I have a really nice facility, it really impacts on recruitment. We went from year one, from 24 students, in year 3, we had 178 students in QMC, and they're all being funded, and that equated to not far off £1 million. We had £250,000 investment in the setup, but that was easily kind of like got back within recruitment. And in one of my roles at Yo-Yo Tech as an account manager, and we build facilities for education and private enterprise, is that I've just finished producing a document which discusses the monetization of your esports arena. In the old days, it was football pitches and AstroTurf and the sports hall, and people would hire it out, and swimming pools hire them out. Esports facilities can give you that return in a very similar way in a very short space of time. So, for example, we used to rent out our facility at QMC on a Saturday for birthday parties. And across a Saturday, we might have 4 birthday parties, which generated £1,200. But you run that across most weekends. You then have your holidays, summer camps. They are an opportunity to kind of like get that return on investment through formal education and linking that to community activity. So I think all of the things that we've discussed here it has been really interesting because we're all at different stages and our education systems are different, and we kind of have different perceptions. But I think ultimately we're all heading for the same thing and trying to achieve the same goal. And I think we will get there. But like you said, Christian, 5 years ago, esports just wasn't a thing, and here in the UK, 10 years ago, esports wasn't really a thing. Well, say it was, but like in education terms, it wasn't. That was when it sort of like first started. But I think we're all coming a long way. We're all coming from different, different perspectives, but we all seem to be converging on very similar goals and outcomes. What do kind of, does anyone, Christian, based on what you've heard this evening, how do you
I
see
think
it as somebody on the other side?
I think the next step is like in education is like, well, esports is very small. It employs a lot of people because you like at Riot Games, for example, they run League of Legends Worlds every year. They run an MSI. Valorant has 3 world championships in a year. And you have to think about in each country, they then send people and employ people to do the stage, people to run the sets,
Yeah,
people to make all the code and everything for what they need done, the graphic designers. And I think like with education and like these colleges and schools, what they can do is use their film programs. Okay, we need you to make like an intro for this. Like it's practice, even though it's not an esports degree, it's related to it and it can be used. It's like I have a graphic design student. We need like a banner for our new esports event. You can use that. You have an esports stage. We want to run a tournament. Okay, well, we have people in like IT that we can help set up these servers, set up all these things. And it's like, it's not an esports program. Like they're not part of the esports program, but they're helping it because they're getting experience in it because it's something they can use in all of their other careers that they want to do.
I think that's
brilliant.
the way to go. I'm kind of an academic purist when it comes to this, but I do not believe the need of an esports bachelor degree. But that also comes from my experience in the country, as you said, because we have an inflation of random degrees out there in private universities and using it for profit. And I really am not a big fan of using up and coming buzzwords like blockchain, esports, whatnot as an advertisement tool. My PhD is on advertisement, but I really specifically, and I study this, don't like it when they turned education into an advertisement tool. So I'm not a big fan, but that's not the case in UK. So that's not, if you can provide an ecosystem to support the students that will have that degree, great, power to the people. But if not, if it's for profit and if you're opening up everywhere without sending them, guiding them to reach a goal, then I'm definitely not for it. And that will change from country to country. But I see that I have to cut this short. So if anyone has any questions, just shoot them. We'll answer afterwards.
Yeah, pop questions. You'll find us on LinkedIn, so you can come to us directly as well. And then finally, before we go to Johanna, just very quickly, Peeyush, your thoughts on this evening's discussion.
So, I think I actually share Nesli's viewpoint here. And because what I've also realized over the course of the conversation, as well as, from what we understand, the conversations we've had in the past, essentially, our countries are similar, except she's got a 7-year advantage in terms of launching a course. But the overall, I think, structure of the society is quite similar. And thereby, I think, it's just going to become a marketing tool if we make it into degrees and formalize it too much. The way is, I think we really need to talk about the transferable skills. Putting it in a stopgap arrangement or whatever arrangement does not matter. It's about talking about the skills, the careers that it can create, and the paths that can come out of playing, watching, learning, talking about esports.
Agreed.
Excellent. Okay, brilliant. And just finally, before I hand over to you, Hannah, I just wanted to make something clear here in the UK in terms of education in esports is that when I was talking about monetization, it's not about profit. It's about getting your return on your investment. And like Nesli said,
I got you exactly right. But you also said we are funding the students. That's what I was like
Oh, well,
going
that's
for,
just the
because
that's just the government structure. Like all, whether you're studying
but that's
maths,
great.
English, like they're all being
Hence
studied.
the reason you should have degrees, because you
Yeah.
have the system to support those students.
The
Yeah, the structure.
sustainability.
So that's
Yeah,
great.
no, I agree. Good, excellent. Right, so finally, bring in the lovely Johanna, who is the star of the backstage show for Esports Trade Association. And Johanna, tell us all about what's happening in a couple of months' time now.
Yes, great. Well, thank you all so much. This has been a wonderful conversation, and we are taking esports next to the road in Dallas. So May 22nd and 23rd in Dallas, Texas. This will be an opportunity to come network with all the C-level executives in esports industry and find out all about the different career possibilities in esports. We talked a lot about that on the show today, and we'll have lots of people there, lots of professionals. It'll be lots of fun, and you'll gain lots of esports insight and innovation. So please join us. I put the link to register in the comments, and we will see you all there.
Brilliant. And I was in Chicago last year for the next conference, and it was the best conference I've ever been to. And this one sounds even better. So yeah, if you can get there, 100% get there. Finally, then, it's just for me to wrap up now and to say a massive thank you to Christian, Nesli, and Peeyush and Johanna. It's been a discussion that I've really enjoyed, and probably my favourite LinkedIn Live with the Education Committee. So thank you all very much, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.